So tonight I want to talk about Donald Trump's pardon spree. That is, within the last week or so, Donald Trump has issued over a dozen pardons or other grants of clemency. Now, before I tell you who these people are that Donald Trump has been giving a pardon to, first let's talk about Donald Trump's first day in office, because that was the day when he gave 1,550 pardons and grants of clemency to the insurrectionists who attacked the U.S. Capitol, hundreds of which beat police officers and gouged them and bear sprayed them. That was among the most egregious demonstrations of his abuse of the pardon power. Now, before I get into the more recent specifics, it's fair to say that I think President Biden also abused the pardon power, but on a very different scale. I don't think he should have given pardons to his own family members. And as I said at the time, I don't think he should have given pardons to the members of the January 6th committee, including myself. In fact, I urged the administration not to do so because I felt it would set a terrible precedent. And I also worried that Donald Trump would abuse the power, would use that precedent and abuse the power far, far worse. And that is exactly what has happened.
Patriots, welcome back to the channel. If you believe in law and order, the Constitution, and putting America first, you are in the right place. And today, I want to talk about a video that's been making rounds, one that's loaded with more bias than CNN on election night. The video is a full-blown leftist meltdown over President Donald Trump exercising his constitutional power, the power of the pardon. It's filled with outrage, hypocrisy, and straight-up misinformation. So let's break it down, and I'll give you the truth the mainstream media won't. First of all, let's get something straight. The pardon power is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. It's a legal, time-honored presidential authority used by presidents from George Washington to Barack Obama.
So let's look at some of the pardons. They fit into a number of categories. You have people he pardoned because they gave great big contributions to Donald Trump. You have others that he pardoned because they're Republicans, they were corrupt elected officials, and they made the same bogus claim of political prosecution that Donald Trump likes to make. And then finally, you have pardons and clemency that were given to people for God knows what reason. And the problem with all of these pardons, of course, is that it nullifies jury verdicts. It makes a mockery of the idea that there is one system of justice for the rich and powerful and for everyone else. And when Donald Trump does this, it just makes the rule of law look like a joke. That is the worst casualty of his abuse of the pardon power. When used properly, it can be a great thing. It can give people a second chance who have earned it, who have made restitution, who have admitted wrongdoing. That is not the circumstance with the people I'm about to tell you about. So let's start out with the most recent rash of pardons. Michael Grimm. Michael Grimm was a Republican member of Congress. He was convicted of tax evasion, of failing to file over $1 million in gross receipts. But Michael Grimm, this Republican congressman, is not alone. He is one of 8 Republican members of Congress that Donald Trump has given a pardon or clemency to. 8. All of them Republicans, all of them given clemency or a pardon by Donald Trump. Now, Michael Grimm, like the others, because they're not stupid, pleaded, "Oh, Donald, political persecution just like you, I'm a victim just like you," and apparently that's all it takes to get a pardon. Ed Martin, who was defeated as the nominee for the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia, is now in charge of the Pardon Office. You might remember Liz Oyer formerly held that title. Ms. Oyer was fired simply because she wouldn't agree to give Mel Gibson's gun back after a domestic restraining order prohibited him from getting another gun. So she was fired, replaced by Ed Martin, who was defeated because of his close affiliation with Nazi sympathizers, because of his undeclared hundreds of appearances on Russian Kremlin media, because of his unethical, improper actions as acting U.S. attorney. That guy was made the head of the Pardon Office, and that guy, following some of these pardons, said, "Leave no MAGA behind." That's right, the head of the Pardon Office, his view is leave no MAGA behind. So if you're a MAGA criminal, hats off to you, you get a break from Donald Trump. But Michael Grimm is not the only one to get a pardon, not by a long stretch.
Oh, what the hell? I pardon him too.
So the next to receive a pardon are Julie and Todd Chrisley. The Chrisleys are reality TV stars. They were convicted of bank fraud and tax evasion in the amount of about $30 million, which they used to fund their lavish lifestyle. Their daughter, Savannah, is a supporter of Donald Trump. She spoke at the Republican convention.
He called us the Trumps of the South.
And guess what? That earned a pardon for her parents. The fact that the Chrisleys are major crooks didn't matter. Your daughter speaks at the Republican convention, you get a pass. And here's the interesting part. Their accountant was also convicted. But guess what? The accountant didn't get a pardon. I guess the accountant didn't have a child at the Republican convention singing Donald Trump's praises. The next is Michael Harris, or Harry O., the founder of Death Row Records. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, but he endorsed Donald Trump, and he is now the recipient of a pardon. Jeremy Hutchinson also received a pardon. Jeremy Hutchinson is a Republican senator and the nephew of Asa Hutchinson, a Republican former governor. He, like some of the other Republican electeds like Michael Grimm, made the false claim that he was the victim of some kind of political persecution, a la Donald Trump's false claims. He got a pardon. Governor John Rowland got a pardon. Governor John Rowland, again, another Republican. This is someone who was going to be impeached by his state legislature. He was then convicted of corruption charges. About a decade later, he was convicted of more corruption charges. He gets a pardon. Larry Hoover, otherwise known as King Larry, was a major drug kingpin in the 1970s. He was serving consecutive life sentences. He received a commutation from Donald Trump at the request, at the urging of Kanye West. He, at the time, was known for ordering the murder of a rival gang member and led a gang that distributed about $100 million in drugs throughout the Chicago area. I guess having a character witness like Kanye West is really helpful in getting clemency these days. Ahmad Zuberi is a venture capitalist. He received commutation for a 17-year sentence, but this was a guy who contributed over $1 million to Donald Trump's campaign or his inaugural. This is someone who also was convicted of obstructing an investigation into where $900,000 of that contribution came from. He gets relief from Donald Trump. This is Scott Jenkins, former sheriff. He was convicted of taking $75,000 in bribes to deputize people, to allow them to get out of speeding tickets and to carry weapons. He was about to report for a 10-year sentence for that corruption when he received a pardon from Donald Trump. He was an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump, and I guess that's all you needed. So if you're a crooked cop, apparently all that is necessary for you to get relief from your bribery conviction is a vocal support for the President of the United States. This is Ross Ulbricht, a former tech entrepreneur who started a site called Silk Road on the dark web to distribute vast amounts of illegal drugs. This is what federal prosecutors said in a statement at the time of his sentencing. Ulbricht also demonstrated a willingness to use violence to protect his criminal enterprise and the anonymity of its users, soliciting 6 murders for hire in connection with operating the site, although there is no evidence that these murders were carried out. Now, this is a very partial list, but the last one I want to feature tonight is Paul Walczak. Paul Walczak was convicted of tax crimes which included defrauding his own employees. He was set to serve 18 months and pay a $4.4 million fine. That is before Walczak's mother attended a $1 million a plate fundraiser for Donald Trump. And less than 3 weeks after she attended that fundraiser, Walczak got his pardon. At the time the judge handed down the sentence in the Walczak case, he wanted to make a point, and his point was, as he said, the rich do not get a get-out-of-jail-free card. Sadly, under Donald Trump, that is exactly what they get.
Oh, what the hell? I pardon him too.
But when President Trump uses it, suddenly it's the end of democracy. Give me a break. Obama issued over 1,700 commutations and pardons, including a commutation for a domestic terrorist. Oscar Lopez Rivera, a man tied to bombings. Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, a billionaire fugitive who donated big money to his library. But where was the outrage then? If they can do it, so can President Trump. The difference? Trump's pardons make liberals squirm because they benefit Americans the establishment hates conservatives, police, veterans, people wrongly demonized for supporting Trump. They say Trump pardoned 550 insurrectionists on day one. That's a flat-out lie. First of all, most of the people involved in January 6th were peaceful protesters. Were there some who crossed the line? Sure, but let's not pretend they were all criminals. Many were veterans, business owners, and proud Americans who felt their voices weren't being heard. And guess what? They're still being locked in solitary confinement, without trial, in some cases for misdemeanors. These people aren't terrorists. They're political prisoners. And if President Trump chose to give some of them a second chance, I say good, because the left would have let them rot for voting the wrong way. Now, the video claims Trump gave pardons to people who donated money to his campaign. Wow, big shocker there. The left does this every single day. You mean to tell me people who supported him, people who put their money where their mouth is, don't deserve to be heard? Unlike Democrat donors who get ambassadorships in Europe, these folks were given a second chance after serving time or after being overcharged by politically motivated prosecutors. That's justice, folks, not corruption. They talk about pardons for Republican lawmakers like Michael Grimm and Jeremy Hutchinson. You know what? These guys were targeted. The DOJ under the Obama and Biden administrations has a long history of using the legal system to destroy conservatives. It's not about justice. It's about sending a message. If you're a Republican and you step out of line, they'll come after you. That's what happened to General Flynn. That's what happened to Roger Stone. That's what's happening to Trump himself. President Trump wasn't rewarding corruption. He was defending people who were railroaded by a corrupt system. The left pretends to care about corruption in the pardon office. But look at what happened before Trump stepped in. We had bureaucrats making decisions based on politics, not fairness. Now, they're mad because Trump appointed Ed Martin, someone who believes in leave no MAGA behind. Well, I say that's exactly what we need. Finally, someone who's not ashamed of conservative values. If we don't stand by our people, who will? The left? The media? Big tech? Please. They bring up Julie and Todd Crisley like it's a scandal. Let me ask you something. Where was this outrage when Hunter Biden got sweetheart deals from federal prosecutors? The Crisleys are TV personalities, parents, and yes, they got caught up in financial crime. But did they kill anyone? Did they burn down cities like Antifa? No. Their daughter stood on stage at the RNC, spoke her mind, and for that the media wants to destroy her family. This isn't about crime, it's about punishing people who love America. They talk about Michael Harris, Larry Hoover, and Ross Ulbricht like Trump is letting mass murderers run free. Look, the facts matter. Michael Harris served decades behind bars. Kanye West, an outspoken black American conservative, advocated for clemency. Why shouldn't the president listen? Same with Larry Hoover. Communities supported his commutation. And Ross Ulbricht? He's become a symbol of government overreach in the digital age. Life without parole for building a website? Think about that. These aren't radical decisions, they're compassionate, ones that scare the establishment. Oh, they're mad that someone like Paul Walzak got a pardon after his mother attended a Trump fundraiser. Let me break it to the left slowly. Being wealthy doesn't mean you should be punished more. Justice is supposed to be blind, not vindictive. This man was sentenced. He paid a fine. His family supported the president. So what? Is supporting Trump now a criminal act in their eyes? The whole video is built on double standards. When Democrats pardon terrorists or corrupt officials, it's framed as progress or compassion. But when Trump uses the exact same power, suddenly it's tyranny. They can't stand that Trump uses a system they built for Americans who've been abandoned by the elites. Working class people, cops, soldiers, small business owners, patriots. So let's be clear, this isn't about pardons. This is about the left losing control. President Trump is fighting for us, the forgotten men and women of America, the people who still believe in this country, who go to work, who raise their families, who salute the flag and say grace before dinner. The pardon power isn't just legal, it's necessary. Because when the system is rigged, when justice is politicized, when prosecutors are weaponized, sometimes the president has to step in. And when that president is Donald J. Trump, you better believe he'll do it boldly, loudly, and unapologetically. God bless you. God bless our Constitution. And God bless the United States of America. Like, share, and subscribe if you stand with liberty, law and order, and President Trump. And let me know in the comments, who do you think deserves a second chance? Till next time, stay strong, Patriots.